Young Justice issue 20, Brian Michael Bendis and Scott Gudlowski on the art. This is I double checked this to make sure it was the final one, because the caption at the end says, never the end, and I was like, oh, is this last one? Because it was only the phrasing at the end that made me think that, because it's fairly standalone. But what's weird about this is that this issue feels like it should have been much earlier in the run, and it does feel like it's setting up for a much longer run. It feels like this is because this issue is an issue that focuses on Kelly. This is the Teen Lantern, right? And it's them establishing their base at Mount Justice. So it feels like this is the end of the pilot where they're setting up where they're going to be working out of, and it starts off with like Kelly's like fighting something we don't get to see. A lot of narration boxes talking about how she's kind of a nervous lantern who doesn't even know what the oath is. She just stole this power because she found this weird alien device connected up to a power battery. All the rest of it, but it jumps back in time, and it's the team being shown Mount Justice for the first time, and so you got the new people who have never seen it: Naomi, Ginny, Kelly, and just being shown around, and then they find like a dormant red tornado. I say the dormant red tornado, and they're explaining who Red Tornado is, and there's some jokes here. The banter's solid, as it ever is, if you like Bendis' dialogue, and I do. Sometimes you could do with toning it down a little bit, but there's a joke here where basically Bart is speaking so fast that Jenny mishears him and thinks she says red tomato, so she keeps calling him red tomato, which Connor's shaking his head at. He's really upset.
I'm not upset. It's so typical Bendis dialogue.
Yeah.
Do you really disagree with that?
I don't disagree with that. I just I like typical Bendis dialogue, though. I don't have a problem with that. But Red Tornado wakes up as like intruder alert and starts fighting them, and actually knocks out every single member except Kelly. So this is very much Kelly's issue, with sort of her driving force. And then John Shure shows up, and he sort of quickly, like after she's like dismantled Red Tornado, basically debates with her, and it flashes back because we saw in the background that they were talking to each other back when they were helping clear up the debris in Metropolis. So it flashes back to that interaction where he basically says there's a lot going on right now, but we have to have a serious talk about that tech you've got, and it's not yours. You kind of taken it and stolen it. And it comes back to present day where he's like, look, you're going to have to give that up. Clearly you're going to end up hurting someone. It's not yours. You didn't earn it. And Kelly's like, I think I did kind of earn it. Like, I feel full and proper with this. And one by one, the rest of the team kind of like wake up and stick up for her and say, no, she's doing good with this. She's a member of Young Justice. We are sanctioned by Superman. Mr. Stewart. Take it up with the chief. And it's kind of this thing where he's not really, like, John's kind of coming off as kind of the bad guy, not like in a villainous way, just in a kind of the adult who's like stepping in and not letting them do the thing they want to do, which is kind of weird when you've got Tim and Steph and some of the other characters who actually feel like they're already like 19, 20, and it doesn't feel quite the same. But Kelly is much younger though. Kelly's like 10 or 12 or something like that. But there's a great line-up shot with them all together, sort of behind her, sort of sticking up for her. And when she says that, look, I feel like I never really belonged before, and when I got this device, I feel like I had a purpose and like I belonged to something and like I could help with it. I don't know if you can relate to that. And you can sort of see in the art here from Gudlowski that John, it's the first moment where he kind of like almost feels bad that he's even trying to take it from her, because he kind of does understand it. It's the moment he kind of relates to. So he's like, okay, we have to have. Basically, there's a distress call. He has to go and do Justice League stuff. So he's like, look, I'll leave just now, but we have to have a talk about this at the Hall of Justice. You have to be trained. You have to be all that. And she's like, sorry. He's like, not by me necessarily. But flies off. It's okay, but he says you have to rebuild Red Tornado. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He's supposed to guard the place, and you broke in. And the final page is just like them all hanging out on the beach outside of Mount Justice, with the reinforcements there to hang out. From Miguel from Dial H and the Wonder Twins. Steph is there. All the regular extras. And it just says never the end is the end of the issue, and it's kind of this weird thing where I think it's a fairly solid issue, maybe a little overly wordy at times, but that's not exactly uncommon for Bendis. But I think the sentiment's good. I think it's important to give a character like Kelly a focused issue. It feels like instead of all the multiverse hopping shit we were doing for the first like 10 issues or whatever it was, we really should have been having issues like this, and this feels like it should have been in the first like arc or so of the run, and it feels weird because this issue does feel like it's setting up a status quo for where Young Justice will now continue for a long run, and that long run doesn't exist because this is literally the last issue.
Unless they're planning on relaunching it in March under a different creative team.
Very possible. And that might even do it the good, because I think, well, Bendis has had some moments in it. It does feel like it's been kind of spinning a lot of wheels, and which is weird because when it shows some weird direction like it does here, where it does feel like, oh, this is the start of a status quo that could lead to a lot of great
just
stories.
20 issues in.
Yeah. So, if it does get a new creative team of some kind, maybe Mark Russell would be a good writer on this book.
Mark Russell would be good on pretty much anything, let's be honest.
But he's written some of the characters before, extend it out a little bit, or even someone like who else would you put on here? I don't know. There's probably a few different names that I could see kind of working with this kind of team. Honestly, I think Gail Simone might even be a good fit for this type of book. Probably characters.
I think what's worth pointing out as well is younger teams, Young Justice, Teen Titans, whatever, are great fits for lesser known creators because it lets them try their hand at a lot of characters that are recognizable enough without a lot of the pressure that comes with the upper tier books. So I do think that you tend to get a lot of unknowns or relatively unknowns on these sorts of books. Bendis was kind of the exception here.
It was kind of an awkward, bittersweet thing because it was a pretty solid issue for the most part. But it was like, this is the ending, and it doesn't really mean anything at this point because it's already over. And it doesn't feel like we've had a story that has it feels like we didn't really get much of an actual story outside of just like, why do we all not know who each other are, or what are our histories? And we spent most of the time sorting out that. And the last 2 or 3 issues, which are, I think mostly have been good, maybe one wasn't, but it's had this weird feeling that ever since we knew it was ending, it was like every issue that goes by because they all feel like these little standalone issues which are solid and are there designed to be in between the big runs, but there's no next run, or arc, I should say, not run. But there's no next arc coming, so it has this weird feeling.
I guess what I'd say from the outside, just like having listened to you and Matt for some of the issues, a reasonable amount of the issues, it's felt weird because obviously you were very excited at the start because, hey, Young Justice is back and this is the teams together, and you kind of, I don't want to say soured on it, but kind of got like, oh, it's just doing this over and over, like especially the multiverse stuff near the start. You in particular were a little bit jaded by that. And then here at the end, like I say, it's ending and you've had these standalone issues that have been fine by the sounds of it, but the feeling I get, at least from the outside, is kind of you've been kind of wondering, why is this the ending? Like, what's the statement of the run here at the end? And it's kind of just felt like a collection of random issues that didn't fit anywhere else, almost.
I'm not wondering that. I'm not wondering what the statement at the end is, because I don't think this was meant to be the end.
Statement of the run as a whole, not the statement that the ending is making.
Well, yeah, but that's kind of my point, is I don't think this was supposed to be the end of the run. I think Bendis probably was expecting to do more, and he hadn't got around to it yet, and for what, just wasn't selling enough. They wanted to cancel it. Or maybe whatever it's repackaged in, maybe Bendis will still be involved with it in some fashion with some of the characters in like a separate book. At the very least, we're supposed to get a season 2 of Naomi, which I hope we do, because that book was great. That was one of the best things Bendis has written.
I'm sure you will get that eventually, if for no other reason that I bet it sells really well in the bookstores.
Oh, very possible, yeah. So it's just this really weird, bittersweet kind of thing where it just feels like it's starting to set up a status quo where I could really enjoy what it's doing. They're at Mountain Justice, this team's kind of established. And there's a sweet moment where they all stick up for Kelly, and Kelly afterwards kind of admits that she's never really had a friend before, and this is kind of a new thing for her. That people are actually like got her back, and it was kind of sweet, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of nice. And I just wish that this was the start of the run, or near the start of the run, as opposed to the last issue. It's kind of odd. So yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame that it kind of ends in this weird place. I don't even want to say whimper, because that's not quite right either. It just feels like untapped potential. And not even just because it needs another team. I think Bendis does have the potential to have a great run of this team in him, this book, this set of characters. But
it's hard to feel too sympathetic in the sense of okay, you're talking. It feels like it's really getting going now, and that's great. You know that it's starting, and and by great I mean it's also frustrating and disappointing that it's ending.
Mm-hmm.
But also, if it takes you kind of 20 issues to get to that stage, I understand why maybe it got cancelled, or why there's a problem with that. Why readership probably dropped off if you've got to wait 20 issues till it's get into the real meat of the run. That's quite a long time, right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. I don't really have much more to add. I wish it was better. I wish I was more happy with what it is, and
Yeah.
I'm just kind of not. So there you go. That is Young Justice. Yeah, I mean, I think this is like a solid 6.5, maybe. Yeah, I feel like I'm coloring it because it's the ending, and that's what's making it weird. I think on its own merits, if this was just an issue that was early in the run, I'd probably give this a solid 8. But it's kind of got a weird feeling to it because it
But
isn't that.
because it's the ending, it's like, well, it doesn't feel like an ending, right?
Well, it isn't an ending. It was never supposed to be an
Right.
ending.
But I mean, part of this should be, in theory, at least in my opinion, on Bendis, that okay, once he knows this book is ending and this is the last issue, should have rewritten this to feel like an ending.
That's I mean, assuming he even had any sort of advance notice, given what the schedule is to when he writes something and when it comes out. I don't know.
No, that's fair. Yeah, I don't know that either.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.